She sighed dramatically. So what if I spent time with him? You were busy working late anyway. After I spotted his hoodie in her closet, I responded, Sure, I work late to create a future, not to watch you destroy it. She was left speechless when I switched the apartment lease into her name and exited with my final box. I'm a creator. That's who I am. I don't mean construction, though I appreciate the trade. I mean I create things from scratch. I built a career starting in the mailroom and climbing to a senior analyst role. I saved money by living on rice and beans for 5 years until I could afford a down payment for my future. My philosophy is straightforward. You don't achieve the life you desire by merely wishing for it. You earn it by constructing it, brick by challenging brick. My girlfriend Megan was meant to be my ally in this journey. I believed we were crafting the same future. Now I realized she was just residing in the house I was creating, complaining about the construction noise. For 3 years, the arrangement worked, or so I thought. I put in long hours, often returning home late. It was a sacrifice I felt was necessary. Each additional hour was another brick laid in the foundation of our future. I had promised her a home of our own, financial stability, the freedom to travel. She worked part-time at a boutique, covering her personal expenses. I managed the major costs: rent for our nice downtown apartment, utilities, car payments, and groceries. I viewed it as my duty, my investment in our shared future. She saw it, I now understand, as her entitlement. The disconnect became apparent in minor details. While I was working late on a crucial project, she was out enjoying drinks with friends. When I was worn out on a Saturday, she would be frustrated that I didn't have the energy for a boozy brunch. My sacrifices weren't seen as contributions. They were seen as inconveniences to her. The person she was most inconvenienced by was Alex, her work husband, a term she used with a smug laugh. He was a guy from a nearby store with whom she spent her lunch breaks. Those breaks began to extend. Then they turned into after-work drinks. Then he started showing up while I was busy with work. I didn't like it, but I'm not the type to impose rules. I believe in letting people's actions reveal their true intentions. I just watched and gathered evidence. The final piece of evidence appeared last Wednesday. While putting away laundry, I found a piece of clothing on her side of the closet that didn't belong to her. It was a dark gray men's hoodie from a brand I knew she wouldn't buy for me. It was crumpled at the back, hidden behind her dresses as if stashed away in a hurry. I pulled it out, and it carried a faint scent of his cologne, the same one I had detected on her clothes after her late-night outings. I didn't feel anger. I felt something far colder and heavier, the weight of a failed investment. I had invested years of my life, energy, and money into a project that was fundamentally flawed from the start. The foundation was rotten. It was time to tear it down before it collapsed on me. I waited for her to come home. She arrived around 8, flushed and cheerful after a long day at work. I was sitting on the couch, holding up the hoodie. "This was in the closet," I stated, my tone completely neutral. She froze. The happy glow faded. She glanced at the hoodie, and for a moment, I saw genuine panic, but as always, she quickly resorted to her primary defense, aggressive dismissal. She rolled her eyes, a gesture filled with condescension. "Oh my God, are you serious?" she exclaimed, snatching the hoodie from me. "It's Alex's. He was cold the other night when he walked me home, so I lent him my jacket, and he gave me this. So what if I spent time with him? You were working late anyway." That was it. That was the moment. The casual, entitled justification. My hard work wasn't a sacrifice for our future. It was her excuse. My long hours weren't building a life for us. They were creating an opportunity for her. I looked at her, at the defiant tilt of her chin, and the complete lack of remorse in her eyes. The builder in me took charge. When a project is a lost cause, you don't try to fix it. You cut your losses, tear it down, and salvage what you can. "You're right," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I do work late." I stood up and faced her. "I work late to create a life, not to watch you destroy it." I walked past her and headed straight to my office. She began shouting after me, accusing me of being controlling and insecure. I didn't listen. I was already closing the door, my mind clear and focused. The demolition had started. She thought we were fighting. She had no clue I was already drafting plans for my new life. Update 1. The 48 hours following our confrontation were filled with intense, focused activity. Megan, believing we were in for a few days of cold silence followed by her eventual reluctant forgiveness, continued with her life. She went to work, went out with friends, and thought she was giving me space to come around. Little did she know, I was using that space to plan a complete withdrawal from her life. My plan was not emotional, it was financial and logistical. The biggest tie binding me to her was our apartment. We lived in a fantastic 2-bedroom unit in a sought-after area of the city. The lease was solely in my name, thanks to my credit score and income. She was merely listed as an occupant. This was my primary leverage. My first call on Thursday morning was to the property management company. I spoke with the manager, a no-nonsense woman named Brenda, with whom I had a solid professional relationship. I had always paid my rent on time and never caused issues. That goodwill was about to pay off. I calmly explained the situation. Brenda, my domestic partner, and I are separating. I will be vacating the apartment. However, she wishes to stay. I need to know the procedure for transferring the lease to her name. Brenda was sympathetic but firm. That's a tricky situation, Kevin. She would have to reapply on her own, and frankly, based on the income information she provided as an occupant, she wouldn't qualify. This was the obstacle I had anticipated. I understand that, I replied, but I have a proposal. I am willing to prepay the next 2 months' rent in full right now. This gives her a 60-day cushion to find a roommate or secure her finances. All I want is to have my name legally removed from the lease and all future liability effective immediately upon her signing the transfer addendum. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her typing. The offer of 2 months' rent guaranteed was a powerful incentive, removing all risk for the management company. "You're serious?" she asked. "You'd pay for 2 months just to get your name off the lease?" "I am 100% serious," I replied. "Think of it as a severance package. I just need you to draft the lease transfer addendum. I'll take care of getting her signature." Brenda agreed and said she would have the legal document ready for me to pick up the next day. The trap was now being constructed. While waiting for the paperwork, I began the process of untangling my life from hers. I went through our bank statements and calculated every shared expense from the past year, creating a spreadsheet that showed I was covering over 85% of our total living expenses. This document wasn't for her. It was a reminder for me of the hole I was preparing to escape from. Then I started packing, but I packed my things, not hers. I was meticulous, buying high-quality boxes and packing tape. I began with my office, boxing up my books, files, and computer gear. Then I moved on to my clothes and personal items, working quietly while she was at her part-time job. I neatly stacked the boxes in the spare bedroom, out of sight. I was becoming a ghost in my own home. On Friday afternoon, I picked up the lease transfer addendum from Brenda. It was a straightforward 1-page document stating that as of the signing date, Kevin Miller was released from all financial and legal responsibilities related to Apartment 4B, and that Megan Lane assumed full and sole responsibility for the remainder of the lease term. My plan was to present this document to her not as a breakup notice, but as a standard piece of administrative paperwork. My chance came that evening. Megan, still in her giving me space mode, was getting ready to go out with her friends. I walked into the living room holding the document and a pen, wearing a look of weary resignation. "Hey," I said, "I know things are tense right now, but the leasing office sent over the annual lease renewal information. They need it back by Monday. Can you just sign this so I can drop it off?" She eyed the paper suspiciously. "A renewal already?" "It's not the full renewal," I lied smoothly. "It's just the initial intent form. Standard procedure. You just need to sign at the bottom as the other listed occupant." She was distracted, thinking about her night out, and didn't want to deal with boring apartment paperwork. She took the pen, glanced briefly at the dense text without truly reading it, and scribbled her signature at the bottom. "There," she said. "Happy now?" "Ecstatic," I replied quietly, my face betraying nothing. I took the signed document, returned to my office, and immediately scanned it, emailing it to Brenda at the property management office. The trap had been sprung. She had just willingly and legally taken possession of her own prison. Update 2. The final day was Saturday. I had arranged for a small moving truck to arrive at noon. Megan had gone out for brunch with her friends, likely to complain about her moody boyfriend. The timing was perfect. I spent the morning moving my packed boxes from the spare room into the living room, creating a tangible representation of my life, neatly contained and ready for extraction. I took down my photos, posters, and a few pieces of art. The apartment began to feel less like home and more like a hotel room I was preparing to check out of. The movers were prompt and professional, loading all my belongings into the truck in under an hour. I conducted a final sweep of the apartment. Everything left was hers. The furniture we had picked together, kitchen supplies, the television, and the mountain of her clothes and shoes. I was leaving it all behind, a small price to pay for my freedom. As the movers were wrapping up, Megan's car pulled into the parking lot. She stepped out, laughing on the phone with someone. Upon seeing the moving truck, her laughter faded. She noticed me standing by the truck, and her expression shifted to confusion and anger. She ended her call and stormed over to me. "What is this?" she demanded. "What are you doing?" "I'm moving out," I stated plainly. "You're moving out?" she echoed, disbelief mingling with fury. "Just like that, you're going to leave over a stupid hoodie?" "It was never about the hoodie, Megan," I replied calmly. "The hoodie was just the final piece of evidence. It confirmed a pattern of disrespect. It proved that while I was working to build us a future, you were entertaining another man in the present." "I told you he's just a friend," she insisted, her voice rising. "You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "Am I?" I asked, pulling out the folded lease transfer addendum from my pocket. I handed it to her. "I don't think so. I believe I'm reacting in a perfectly proportional way." She unfolded the paper, and her eyes widened as she read the first line. She read it again, her lips moving silently. Looking from the paper to me, her face showed pure, uncomprehending horror. "What is this?" she whispered. "Lease transfer, sole responsibility. What does this mean?" "It means exactly what it says," I explained, my tone devoid of emotion. "You signed this yesterday. You are now the sole legal and financial responsible party for this apartment. The rent, the utilities, all of it. It's all yours now. Congratulations." She shook her head frantically. "No, I didn't agree to this. You tricked me. I presented you with a legal document, and you signed it," I countered. "Just as you presented me with a relationship, and I signed on, believing you were acting in good faith. It seems we both struggle with reading the fine print." I gestured toward the apartment building. "This life, this nice apartment you cherish so much, it all has a cost. I've been paying it. Now it's your turn." I moved over to the truck, where I had one last box to load myself. It contained my most important documents and a few sentimental items. I picked it up and looked back at her one last time. "I work late to create a life, not to watch you destroy it." She had nothing to say. She stood there, clutching the paper that had just become her anchor, her face a mix of devastation and disbelief. She wasn't laughing or rolling her eyes, she was silent. I turned away, placed my last box in the truck, and closed the door. I got in the cab and drove off, not looking back once. The demolition was complete. Final update. It's been 6 months. The dust has settled, and the new life I began building that day is solid, quiet, and entirely my own. From what I've gathered, the aftermath of my departure led to a spectacular financial and personal collapse for Megan. The first domino to fall was the rent. The 2 months I had prepared gave her a cushion, but she lived under the illusion that she could somehow escape the lease, thinking she could call Brenda and cry her way out of a legally binding contract she had signed. Brenda, I'm told, was having none of it. She informed Megan that the lease was unbreakable, and the full rent would be due on the 1st of the month. Megan, whose part-time job barely covered her car payment and brunch expenses, couldn't afford the rent. Not even close. She desperately sought a roommate, but her timeline was too short, and her chaotic nature likely didn't make her an appealing housemate. She tried to convince Alex, her work husband, to move in with her. That conversation, according to a mutual friend who heard it from Alex himself, was a disaster. He enjoyed their flirtation and secret meetings, but he hadn't signed up to pay rent for a 2-bedroom apartment or become her new provider. He wanted the fun without the responsibility. When she approached him with her financial crisis, he bailed immediately, blocking her number and disappearing from her life. The inevitable outcome followed. After my 2 prepaid months were up, she missed her first rent payment. The management company initiated the eviction process right away. A formal eviction on her record surely made it incredibly difficult for her to rent another decent place. She was forced to move back in with her parents. The furniture and all the other things I had left behind had to be sold for a pittance or put into expensive storage, which her parents had to cover. She lost the apartment, her side piece, and the comfortable lifestyle she had taken for granted. She was left with nothing but the consequences of her own decisions. As for me, I moved into a smaller, more affordable 1-bedroom apartment. It's all I need. With the money I'm saving, I've accelerated my plan to buy my own house. The financial freedom of no longer supporting an adult who refuses to contribute is staggering. My revenge wasn't about the hoodie or even the affair. It was a response to her fundamental disrespect for my work, sacrifices, and our supposed shared goals. She saw my long hours as her opportunity. I turned those long hours into the very thing that empowered me to walk away clean. I didn't scream or fight. I didn't destroy her property. I merely transferred responsibility. I took the life she enjoyed so casually and handed her the bill. She rolled her eyes at my concerns, so I built a new life where her opinion is irrelevant. In the end, she had nothing to say because there is no argument against a well-executed plan. There is no comeback to the consequences you signed for.